I mean, imagine walking into like the ground floor lobby of a high-rise office building.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
You step into the elevator, hit the button for the 10th floor, and just ride it all the way up.
All right, pretty standard so far.
But then the doors slide open, you walk down the hall, exit through the back doors, and somehow you step out onto another bustling, completely flat street level with cars driving by and everything.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it sounds like a literal glitch in the Matrix.
Right.
Or, the architectural equivalent of an M.C. Escher drawing where the staircases just endlessly loop into each other.
It totally bends the mind just trying to picture it. But that scenario is a daily, totally mundane reality in the city we're exploring today.
Yeah, and the way we're exploring it is actually what makes this deep dive so unusual, I think.
Exactly. Because welcome to the deep dive, everyone. Our source material today is not an architectural digest or some high-end travel documentary.
No, it's actually a beginner-level English language learning script.
Yeah. We are looking at a simple, formatted dialogue between two fictional characters, Lily and Tom.
Which is fascinating because normally these beginner texts are incredibly safe. You learn things like the apple is red or where's the nearest library.
Right, very utilitarian, just straightforward stuff.
Exactly. The whole goal of those traditional texts is just to build the foundational scaffolding of a new language, right? You don't want to overwhelm the student's cognitive load with complex subject matter.
Yet this specific pedagogical dialogue just throws that entire safe, predictable model right out the window.
It really does.
It uses the extreme, honestly, almost unbelievable urban geography of Chongqing, which is a megacity in southwest China, as a linguistic tool.
And it does it so well.
So our mission today is to unpack how this seemingly simple vocabulary lesson accidentally functions as like a mind-bending sensory guide to a place that defies all standard logic of city planning.
Yeah, it's wild. And whether you are planning a trip to China or just commuting to work right now, this source material is going to completely shatter your expectations of what a modern human habitat can actually be.
Definitely. I mean, the setting itself is doing a lot of the heavy lifting for the language acquisition here.
Oh, absolutely. The dialogue immediately introduces two very specific nicknames for Chongqing to sort of anchor the learner. They call it the Mountain City and the 8D City.
Yeah, and the source spells out what Mountain City means pretty clearly. The entire metropolis is built on these crazy steep terrains overlooking the Yangtze River.
There are literally almost no flat streets.
Right. Getting around on foot means navigating thousands of stairs just carved directly into cliff sides, with these massive, ultra-modern skyscrapers sitting right on top of the jagged drops.
It's just visually stunning.
But the 8D City moniker is where I kind of struggle to map this in my head. I mean, if the first floor of one building is the 10th floor of the building next door, wait, how does a mail carrier even know where they are?
That's a great question.
Like, how do you give someone an address if the concept of ground level is completely subjective?
Well, the trick is realizing that our standard mental model of a city is fundamentally two-dimensional.
Okay, how so?
We think in terms of a grid, right? An X and Y axis. You look down at a map and you see blocks.
Right, north, south, east, west.
Exactly. But in Chongqing, the topography forces the Z-axis, the vertical plane, to become the primary dimension of organization.
Oh, wow.
You aren't just moving north or south, you are constantly moving up and down through varying stratospheres of urban development. So an address isn't just about the street name, it's completely tethered to the elevation.
Okay, that structural reality has to wreak absolute havoc on our modern navigation tools. I mean, I know the characters in the dialogue, Lily and Tom, specifically mentioned that finding your way is really difficult.
Oh yeah, it totally breaks them. Consider the underlying mechanics of consumer GPS, right?
Yeah.
The satellites triangulating your phone's position are relatively decent at pinning down your longitude and latitude. But consumer GPS is notoriously much less precise when calculating altitude.
Which normally isn't a huge deal.
Right, in a standard city that doesn't matter much. But in an 8D environment, three completely different roads might be stacked directly on top of each other in three-dimensional space.
Oh man, so your phone has no idea which layer you're on.
Exactly. The GPS knows your coordinates, but it doesn't know if you're on the suspension bridge or, the highway overpass 50 feet below it, or the pedestrian walkway hidden beneath that. The user interface of a 2D map app just completely collapses.
It essentially renders the smartphone useless for a basic survival task.
Yeah.
Which actually leads to a really fascinating detail in the source material.
Oh, by asking for directions.
Yeah. Lily asks how people manage, and Tom explains that you have to stop staring at your screen and actually ask the locals for directions.
It creates this really fascinating sociological outcome that's dictated entirely by geography. Because the vertical maze actively resists being quantified by software, it forces human interaction. The source text emphasizes that locals are really accustomed to lost travelers and are highly responsive to helping them out.
So what would normally be a moment of extreme frustration, like a failing map app, transforms into this mandatory community building exercise.
Exactly. The landscape itself mandates social cohesion.
That is so cool. But if the landscape is that unforgiving to the point where an app can't even process it, the public transit must be an absolute nightmare to engineer.
Oh, you have no idea.
I mean, you can't just dig a normal subway tunnel in a place where the streets are carved into cliffs and the elevation changes hundreds of feet from block to block.
Well, standard infrastructure relies on standard terrain. When a city grows as rapidly as Chongqing has, confined by rivers on one side and mountains on the other, urban planners run out of horizontal space very quickly.
So there's nowhere to go but up.
Right. The only direction to build is up, and you have to cram domestic, commercial, and transit spaces into the exact same vertical corridors.
Which brings us to a detail in this language lesson that I honestly thought was a typo at first.
The Liziba Station.
Yes. The dialogue introduces the Liziba Station, and it describes a literal passenger transit train that runs through the middle of a high-rise residential apartment building.
It's incredible.
Not around it, not a tunnel underneath it. It goes straight through a hole in the building itself.
Yeah, it is a stunning visual. The monorail track just disappears directly into the stomach of the residential tower.
See, I'm trying to imagine the livability of that situation because the source specifically teaches the word rumbling to describe the train passing through.
Right, which sounds awful.
Yeah. If I get annoyed when a garbage truck idles outside my window, I literally cannot fathom having a public transit line blasting through my living room wall every few minutes.
Yeah.
Wouldn't the vibration alone cause structural damage, let alone drive the residents to the brink?
That is the completely natural assumption. But the engineering behind Liziba Station reveals how extreme constraints birth brilliant innovations.
Okay, tell me how this works.
So the building and the train station were actually designed and constructed simultaneously. They look like a single entity to the naked eye, but they are structurally independent.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The monorail tracks are supported by massive, specialized pillars that are completely separated from the apartment building's framework. There is actually a small gap of about 20 centimeters between the transit structure and the residential structure.
So they aren't actually touching?
Nope. The physical disconnect means the heavy vibrations of the train do not transfer into the walls of the apartments.
Oh, that is wild.
And furthermore, they use specialized acoustic dampening equipment. The source notes that the residents are used to it, but that's largely because the noise is supposedly no louder than a typical dishwasher or washing machine running in the next room.
Okay, well, that completely changes the context. It isn't just some chaotic oversight. It's a meticulously calculated compromise. They couldn't demolish the residential zone, and they couldn't route the train through solid granite, so they engineered a way for public transit and private domestic life to occupy the exact same spatial coordinates.
It perfectly encapsulates the ethos of the entire city, really. When confronted with an impossible geographic hurdle, the residents don't retreat. They adapt and find this hyper-pragmatic, deeply creative solution.
Well, surviving in that kind of environment, climbing thousands of stairs, navigating 8 dimensions of concrete, living around trains, it requires a massive amount of human energy.
Absolutely.
So it makes perfect sense that a city this intense would develop a culinary tradition that is equally aggressive.
Oh, for sure. The environment always shapes the culture, and the culinary scene is often the most direct reflection of a region's geographic challenges.
And the English lesson introduces Chongqing hot pot. The dialogue does not mince words here. It explicitly labels it the spiciest food in China, and Tom tells Lily to imagine fire in your mouth.
Yeah, that phrasing is doing double duty. It's teaching an English idiom, but it's also providing a highly accurate culinary warning.
I bet. The ingredients listed in the dialogue are this mix of the expected and the intense. You know, you have beef, vegetables, and tofu all cooking in this constantly boiling, aggressively spiced soup in the center of the table.
Right.
But then it highlights duck intestines. Now, I consider myself an open-minded eater, but boiling duck intestines in liquid fire feels like a serious escalation.
It sounds intimidating.
It really does. What drives a food culture to become that extreme?
Well, it ties directly back to the topography and the climate we've been discussing. Chongqing sits in a basin surrounded by mountains right on the Yangtze River.
Okay.
That geographical bowl traps moisture, creating an incredibly humid, foggy, and damp environment for much of the year.
Oh, I see.
And in traditional Chinese medicine and local cultural practice, consuming intensely spicy, boiling food is a method to induce sweating and expel that heavy, damp humidity from the body.
So it's literally a biological countermeasure to the weather.
Precisely. Originally, hot pot was a really practical, warming meal for the boatmen and laborers working the damp riverbanks. The heavy spices masked the flavor of cheaper cuts of meat and offal like intestines that the laborers could actually afford.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, and over time, that survival food just evolved into the defining cultural staple of the city.
You know, the sensory vocabulary the lesson uses to describe those intestines is really fascinating. It teaches the word crunchy.
Right.
When I think of an intestine, crunchy is the absolute last adjective I would reach for.
I know it sounds contradictory,
Yeah.
but it highlights a vital aspect of the cuisine. It's not just about the heat, it's about a complex interplay of textures.
Okay, how does that work?
The rapid boiling of the hot pot quickly cooks the thin intestines, tightening the tissue and creating a distinct, snappy crunch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When you combine that highly specific texture with the overwhelming heat of the spices and the boiling temperature of the oil, it creates a culinary event that just demands complete physiological attention.
You literally cannot passively eat a meal like that. Just like you can't passively walk through a city with no flat streets or passively rely on your phone to navigate.
Exactly. Every single element of Chongqing forces you to be entirely present in your physical body. You are using your muscles to climb, you are actively engaging with strangers to find your way, and you are confronting intense, complex sensations at the dinner table.
The city is a full-body experience, and, that brings us to the visual aesthetic, which the source uses as sort of the grand finale of this language lesson.
The night view.
Yeah, the characters look out over the city at night, and the dialogue paints this picture of massive, futuristic. It's amazing. Which brings us to the ultimate question regarding our source material. Why use this wildly intense, multi-layered, chaotic city to teach a beginner English class?
This is a fair question.
Right, because the dialogue is specifically structured to teach 5 core vocabulary words: mountain city, level, apartment building, crunchy, and spectacular.
Well, the pedagogy behind this choice is incredibly sophisticated when you look at the cognitive science of language acquisition.
Really? How so?
Memory retention is heavily dependent on emotional and visual anchors. In psychology, there is a concept known as the von Riesdorf effect, or the isolation effect.
The isolation effects, okay.
It dictates that an item that stands out like a sore thumb is far more likely to be remembered than common expected items.
So if a textbook teaches the word building by showing a picture of, a generic square brick office park, the brain just files it away as mundane and forgets it.
Exactly. But if you teach the phrase apartment building by linking it to the image of a high-speed monorail train tearing through a residential living room,
The brain hooks onto the shock value.
bingo. The emotional arousal, the surprise, the awe, or even the slight intimidation of the duck intestines, it all creates a much stronger neural pathway.
That is brilliant.
You aren't just memorizing the word level from a dictionary definition. You are mapping the word level onto a mind-bending 8D environment where floors and streets completely lose their traditional meaning. The extreme nature of the city provides the perfect, unforgettable cognitive hooks for the vocabulary.
It really elevates the entire process, doesn't it? It turns rote memorization into this imaginative exploration.
It does.
The learner is practicing English, but they are also expanding their mental framework of what is possible in the real world. And the source even leaves the student with highly practical conversational tools, like asking, how do I get to Liziba Station? Or is the hot pot too spicy for beginners?
Which is great because it grounds all that spectacular imagery back into the reality of a human being simply trying to navigate a new environment. It gives the language immediate practical utility.
It really is a brilliant piece of hidden curriculum. I mean, let's look at the incredible layers we've unpacked from this one short dialogue.
Let's do it.
We started with a beginner language lesson and ended up dissecting a mountainous 8D metropolis. We looked at how extreme vertical geography breaks modern GPS, which inadvertently fosters a culture of helpfulness and community interaction.
Yeah, and we examined the architectural ingenuity required to run a train through an apartment building without shaking it to pieces, proving that human engineering can adapt to almost any constraint.
And we explored how the damp, heavy climate gave rise to a culinary tradition of boiling, spicy hot pot that just forces the diner to be fully present in the moment.
It's all connected.
All of these extreme elements combine to create the perfect psychological landscape for a student to anchor new vocabulary words in their memory.
Because learning the word spectacular requires a lot less effort when the context you were given is a neon-lit city stacked vertically on an ancient cliffside.
So true. It makes the old apple is red lessons look completely obsolete.
It really does.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, our listener, with a final thought to ponder. We've seen how the extreme, inescapable geography of Chongqing dictated everything from the failure of satellite technology to the structural engineering of living spaces and even the ingredients in the local cooking.
Right. The physical environment fundamentally shaped the reality of the people living there.
So, the next time you step outside, take a critical look at the hidden geography of your own town or neighborhood.
I love that idea.
Whether it's the distance between your house and the grocery store, the weather patterns you experience, or even just the layout of your streets, how is that specific everyday topography secretly dictating the way you live?
Yeah, how is it subtly shaping the technology you find useful, the way you naturally interact with your neighbors, or even the types of food you crave at the end of the day? Our surroundings are always writing the scripts of our lives, even if we don't realize we are reading them.
Such a great point. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you and keep exploring.